We are back for another episode of the Disruptive Voices of the Pacific. Now, last week's episode, I interviewed a woman who came out about her recent report that she's put into the Lummi police station, a report against the president of the SDA Fiji. So you can go back and listen to that. But today we want to continue a bit of the conversation around the Seventh-day Adventist Church, not because we want to pick on them, but because what we're talking about is actually in so many churches here in Australia, across the Pacific. But we want to just continue having conversations around what is being opened up so that the church can actually do better. The church should be the most safest places, especially for our young people, for the vulnerable, for women. But at the moment, we are failing. We are leaving our sheep to be slaughtered by predators. So today I've got a very special woman. Her name is Litiana Turner. Welcome, Litiana. Great to have you with us. You have been an employee with the Adventist Church for many, many years. And in my interview last week, I mentioned about just an amazing program that the Adventist Church has actually called Adsafe. If every church produced resources like this, our churches really would be safe. And you were employed a number of years ago to roll out this training to ministers, to leaders, to help them create churches that are safe, to know how to deal with abuse, report abuse. And you'll talk a bit more about that. Unfortunately, that never fully made it to Fiji.
Yeah,
and
unfortunately.
A little odd under the circumstances in which we are faced with. But Litiana, before we get into all of that, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're born, who you're married to.
Okay. Well, Bulbanak everyone. My name is Litiana Turner. I was born in Fiji, in Tavor actually, and I come from Wainimbuka, Tailevu. My mother is from Nasaimbitu, that's where I'm from. And I am born in Fiji, lived there for the first 5 years of my life. And then our family had the opportunity to migrate to Australia. And so we came across around 1976. And I've lived in Australia since then. I went to school here. Was blessed to go to church schools here, the Adventist Church school system. And then I studied, did some education, and then started working as a teacher. And then I moved roles and started to work at the church office about 2000 and what would have been 2006. I came across from New Zealand. I'd been teaching in Auckland. And then I got married to a young man from Wainunumbua, John Turner. And we share 3 children. John's late wife, Kalesi, is from Nandronga. And we have also 1 grandson. So that's who I am. I'm in a blended family, and yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So you watched, excuse me, my interview with this woman last week. What were your thoughts as you were watching that?
You know, Letitia, as I watched that interview with that young lady, I guess for me, I realized how much courage it must have taken for her to step out and say, "This is what happened to me," you know, and I guess to this day, I will always be so very, very grateful to her for the courage that she showed to tell her story, her truth in this forum. You know, I've seen and read, you know, some of the comments online, and I'm saddened by it because I don't know when it became that we had so little empathy for the suffering of another, you know, and you know, when I consider the fact, when I listen to her, I believe her. I believe what she says to be her truth and her experience, and I respect that. And I guess because I worked within the church system, I am a church member. I'm very proud of my church, and I love my church. I'm saddened that we did not treat this young lady better. And we have a responsibility. I have a responsibility, you know, to step up and say, hey, I'm so sorry this happened to you. You know, I am so sorry that this happened. Yeah.
One of the big criticisms that came out in the comments was, why is she sharing this 28 years later? Can you speak into why it takes victims so long to speak up?
You know, if we were more trauma informed as people, we would realize that what we were listening to last week was not, we heard the story from an adult woman, but the trauma occurred to a child, to a 13-year-old girl, who trusted that it's in our culture as Pacifica people, as Fijian, the Wirakobi, Wararongo, you know. So she, when I listened to her, I heard the child, I heard that voice. I heard her talking about how she jumped into the car because Taltala asked, come, we go get the thing. And so she's obedient to that. But when she realizes, as the questions are happening, and she's made a mistake, you can hear the panic in her voice. But immaterial to all of that, what we do know is when you suffer abuse, when it takes almost 30 years before you'll disclose. And you know, it's 28 years for her. This is right on the research. You know, she would have shared and people would have listened, but who listens to a child really? That's why we need to be educated in that importance of listening and believing. When a person says to you, when a child says to you, this happened to you, nobody wants to say, admit to that kind of stuff. People are embarrassed or ashamed. So we should not be judging her and saying, show your face. Her face is not important. It's her story, it's her voice. Letitia, I've never, ever met this woman. I've never, ever heard her side of the story. But you know what? This woman doesn't know it. But part of my journey, my life, my work experience life, intersected somewhat with hers. I no longer work for the church because I fought for something in that space. You know, I fought for this voice, and I'm so proud of her. And I feel responsible as a church member to say, we did not do better, and we are so sorry for this.
Yeah. Thank you for your humility and expertise in why survivors don't speak up. Now, you didn't know her, you were aware of her story, and you also have known President Nasoni. What's been your relationship with him over the years?
You know, I work for the Adventist Church, and you know, like all churches, we all know each other. We're all family. We're all, when I say family, we're church family. We're community, and so you know, many of these stories, many of the people we've worked together in some shape or form. As I said, I was a teacher first, but then I was called to what we call the South Pacific Division, which is the headquarters of the church in this part of the world for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And so in the South Pacific Division, I was the Associate Children's Ministries Director. And so I worked in that space for, 5 years. Then I became the Associate Youth Director. And so, you know, I've been involved in ministry. And when I say the South Pacific Division, I'm not talking just about Fiji. I'm talking about all the countries within the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and all the islands within the Pacific. Fiji just happens to be one of them. But Pastor Nasoni was my children's ministries director at the union, and he's a wonderful leader. He's kind, he's caring, he's generous, he's a great leader, and I was his mentor as the children's ministries leader, or the discipleship leader then, for a children's ministry specialist at the division office. So we worked together in that way. So he was my colleague. He's my colleague and my friend. Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you first become aware of this incident?
Okay, so I first became aware of the incident when I was still working as, so there was a discipleship team and I was the children's specialist. I first became aware, I heard some things online. I think there was some stuff in around 2020, around that time, I think that was when it sort of came out. And I mean, that's public knowledge. Everybody sort of knows about it. Yep. And there was an allegation that was made, and so I didn't know anything about it. And so we just had this, as you talk with colleagues, as you talk with people that you mentor, hey, you know. And one of the first things I remember we chatted about, Tala, it's really important for you to, you know, to talk with your wife and your children, because you don't want people to hear. We always want to protect our leaders, you know. You don't want your family hearing about this on social media. You talk to them and you tell them your story so that your children hear it from you. And something that I think I need to say is we all make mistakes. You know, we make judgment calls sometimes that I think, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, you know. And all I'm saying is, I just asked that he talk with his family and explain how things were, and you know, because when we talked, see, I left Fiji when I was 5, so when we sometimes we speak in English and in Fijian, so the words that he said to me was "onreta na lingana," which just means I pulled her hand. Like I'm literally translating word for word. Yeah. So when I hear that, I believe him. That's all that happened, you know, and I believe him still because that's his truth. That's what he has said, you know, and I guess where I sit now, when I hear both stories, I believe him, I believe her, but it's not for me to make a judgment call on who's right and who's wrong. It's no one. It's got to be done by an independent investigation, and that's due process. And
Yeah.
as a former worker with Adsafe, that's all we're asking. I feel that our church needs to step up and own that. He's a good person, and good people make mistakes all the time. I mean, look at Jolly David in the Bible. Oh my life! I mean, the Lord loved him, you know. But look at some of the stuff that he did in his life. But you know what? He made a mistake. He repented of that. You know.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, there's been precedents in the church for this before. Okay, we had at the highest level of our church, and I love my church. I love my church. But at the highest level, there was an allegation made against the president, Falkenberg. Immediately he stepped aside, and an independent investigation took place. That was the process. In Fiji Mission, the former general secretary, an allegation was made. Immediately he stepped aside.
Mm.
That humility, that is what I honor. And all I ask, just give it some space. Allow
Mm.
an independent, not an internal one, an
Mm.
independent one, because we're all connected and we know that.
Yeah, that's vital. I was listening to a podcast this morning that talked about the importance of external reviews. Otherwise, it's like asking the man who bashed his wife to go in and ask his family, "Are we healthy?" Like it's
Oh,
just as silly as that.
yeah,
So yes, it's the cover-ups. I mean, what he did was inappropriate, pulling a girl into the car, and obviously a highly traumatic experience. But
exactly.
it's the cover-ups, and then since then, I guess the stories that have been coming to me of elders who are still elders and having raped girls, or the cover-ups of further abuse. So
Yeah.
quite often it's not just a rotten apple; we create a rotten barrel, don't we? But let's get on to AdSafe, Litiana, because yes, in 2021 you were uh, commissioned to roll this out across the Pacific, including Fiji. Before we talk about that, just give us a brief overview. What is AdSafe?
So, AdSafe is, let me read from their website, is a trauma-informed service supporting healing and justice pathways for both child and vulnerable adult victims of sexual and or physical abuse. So AdSafe is basically it is meant to be, okay. It is meant to be a separate but affiliated part of the church. So I mean, it's like Wheatbix, for instance, right? Wheatbix is created by Sanitarium, which is part of the church, but
Yep.
they're separate, but they're still affiliated to us. So AdSafe is meant to be like the whistleblower or the one that people can go to if there's been an inappropriate action or an allegation, and it's separated into three different parts. So there's redress, there's safeguarding, which was what I was involved in as a team leader for the Pacific, and then there is safeguarding, redress, and of course counselling and the care that's taken there. All right, so that's here in Australia. And Adsafe was actually created in 2017 in response to the Royal Commission that happened here in Australia. And for our Pacific listeners, they may not know what a Royal Commission is, but a Royal Commission is when it's an independent government investigation when things are really going badly. So, for instance, in Australia, we had all these bushfires. So people wanted to know, what can we do better? What have we done wrong? It's okay to self-reflect and look at what we did wrong. It's not that you're hopeless. It's a learning thing. And that's why this is a learning thing for us as a church. We should take it on board as that. We've made mistakes, and what happened was when they asked me to do this job, that was in 2021. That's when I began, 16th of August, 2021. Of course, this is just a little bit after COVID. So my meetings are online, everything is online. And remember, I only became aware of allegations in 2020, right? But I never knew that I was going to work for Adsafe. That came later. But by that stage, okay, working for Adsafe, part of it is holding people accountable. And I remember when I got the job at Adsafe, and I mean, you can ask Pascal Talanasoni this. He's my brother, you can ask him this. I rang him and we had a conversation on the phone. And I said, Tala, if we are going to be doing training in this space, are you all right that if we talk about this and your story comes up and one of the pastors in the training asks the question, that I address it? And you know what? He said, with humility, this is how I know this man. He said to me, you do what you've got to do. So that's what he told me. And I believe him, and that's the thing. I guess, unfortunately, okay, unfortunately, when it came time for me then to do training in this space, it seems, I guess for me, I was just blocked to going out to the Pacific. And you know what? I can understand that. I understand it because, when we make a mistake in a decision that perhaps, right, we don't want to admit to it. We don't want to show that we're fallible, we're normal human beings because we're in leadership. I don't want people to know about the mistakes I've made, and so perhaps it could have been that we wanted to cover it and think it'll go away. It never goes away. It's like a boil that festers, and you will not get relief from a boil. For those of you who have had boils, okay, you will not get relief until it's lanced and all of the gunk and the pus comes out. And it's painful and it's awful, but it's what has to happen. And I'm so sad for my church, Letitia. I love my church. I've worked in children's ministries where we've done GraceLink training throughout, kids in discipleship throughout the Fiji. I was in the youth ministry where we did World Changer Bible launches. I was, we ministered to young people, ASA, all of those leaders, all of those young people in the churches in Fiji, and we can't, as adults, as the leaders, we need to step up. This is our responsibility. What are our children seeing when we're fighting and we're arguing about such a basic thing? We just need to own it, to own what we've done.
Well, I keep saying to leaders in Fiji, and I speak to leaders from all different denominations, you're in a nation where 4 out of 5 children are abused, and 72% of perpetrators are sitting in your churches. As a leader, it is my job to understand the context in which I am leading. But sometimes these pastors are preaching on another planet. They're not addressing the elephants in the room.
Yeah.
And so when you understand the context, okay, what do we need to do to address this issue?
Yeah.
Well, for you guys, you are so blessed that you already have an amazing program ready to go. Most denominations don't, and I've been doing a lot of training. So it just seemed so obvious. Let's get Adsafe. So who was actually, and that's how you and I met. You reached out to me when you'd come on board because I think you were seeing that I was working in the Pacific and said, "How do you get these programs?"
Yeah, that's exactly how that's how I first actually reached out to you because I was blocked from going to Fiji. That was years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just after COVID. Just after COVID.
Just after COVID, that's right.
Must have been when
I
you came into
saw,
the place.
Yeah, you were releasing a book, Disruptive Voices or something. There was something that you did a book, and I read this, and because it was about Fiji, I loved it immediately, obviously. But then because I was not able to come to Fiji, I wanted for you to help my colleagues there. So I asked you to connect with Mary Vulolo, who was my counterpart at the union office, and I asked you also to work with Fiji Mission. And I think at that time we had the ministerial secretary, Pastor Tiko, and also the Women and Children's Ministries Director, Mrs. Alice K. Silva. I think you worked with them. And actually, I think there was an article written about you in our church magazine, because they came to your training.
They had to come out of the Adventist Church to my training. So who was actually blocking you? Why weren't you being able to get to do your job that you'd been employed to do?
So when I get an invitation to go to a local mission, it has to come through the channel. So from local mission, it goes to the union office, and from the union office, it goes to the division office, and then from the division office, it comes to me. So and do training. It comes to the union, and so at the union office, it's the general secretary that usually deals with it, or the president, but usually the general, and then it comes to the general secretary at the division office. So I guess you do the math. It's in that space.
Thanks. So you mentioned, yes, those guys up there. So you it was only a couple of years. So you're employed in 2021. In 2023, you were made redundant.
Correct.
So you never even got to do what
Yeah.
were the circumstances around this vitally important position? But, again, understanding the context, this is not a position you want to make redundant. If we're really the church and
No.
we're for the broken and the vulnerable. So what were the circumstances around you being put off?
I guess from my understanding of it, when I was told, because I was told I'd been in Papua New Guinea running training throughout the PNGUM. Okay, I was there with Dr. Agnes Koller, who was my colleague, my counterpart up there, and we had worked together in a number of missions and the conference, which was that CPC. They've got 9 missions and one conference. So I'd been in for the whole month of May 2023. I'd been in Papua New Guinea, and so I'd been there for that whole month, and I was coming back in, and they had been saying there's not enough funding to finish this project, but there was enough to finish to the end of the year. All right. But of course, we're going to then apply for more funding. This is the church, these are vulnerable people. Of course, there's going to be money for it, And so then I received an email from, I think it was from, yeah, maybe it was Dr. McClintock. He was my boss. He was the acting Adsafe general manager at that time. He sent me an email that they wanted to meet with me on the 6th of June 2023. And so I met with him and the HR director at Avondale University in one of the rooms there. And actually, this is an aside, but yeah, there's a picture of us on that day that we met, just after I was made redundant. But anyway, on my Facebook page. But anyway, the point is, we met there on the 6th, and by the 8th of June, I was redundant. So within 2 days. Now I thought we were meeting to plan how we would go through till the end of the year, but unfortunately it was, look, we don't have enough money. If we can make you redundant now, there'll be enough to send maybe some money to the Pacific, then they run it themselves. And see, this is problematic for me. I guess because I've always been about, and see, this, it could look like, well, it was self-interest because it was my job. But this is the thing, Australia and New Zealand have had a form, like it was not Adsafe, but they've had safe places and that for 21 years. All right. They've had that experience. They've had it. It might not have been perfect, but they've had that functioning in Australia. I'd been in Fiji. I'd been in this role as a team leader for safeguarding for the Pacific for about a year or so. And now we were going to say, well, guys, this is the rest of the money that's left over. Do with it as you will. What are they going to do when they've not had the experience? What are they going to do? I mean, the money's great. Oh, thank you very much for the money. But, there was no, yeah, I feel that we could have done better with the way that we did that. And so, yeah, that's how my redundancy came about. But I'm grateful I received a redundancy. But it really broke my heart, because I think in some ways it's funny, because my mother asked me this question. Oh, I never made the links, because I love my church, and I just assumed, well, okay, if that's what they can do, that's what they can do. My mom asked me the question, what did you do wrong? And I said, what do you mean? This is how faithful God is. He'd just given me the most wonderful month doing ministry and seeing how Adsafe could work. I did this in Papua New Guinea. I came back at the end of May. June 6th, I meet with him. June 8th, I'm redundant. Mum says, what did you do to get the sack? I said, I didn't get sacked. I was made redundant. It's different. I never realized, until now, what my mother saw then. I did. I was hurt. And people probably will see this podcast and say, oh, she's got sour grapes because, the church put her out. No. I think I'm a little bit like, I'm not that I'm holy, but I'm a little bit like, how David says to his brothers, David says, is it David? Oh, my life, my Bible stories. Joseph says to his brothers, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. What you did. I couldn't really, if I was really honest, where Joseph says he's there in Egypt. He speaks this. I speak this because I am a leader in the Adventist Church, whether I work for it or not. And what we're doing is wrong. We need to step up. We need to own our rubbish, and we need to fix it. And we can fix it. We know what we have to do. Litiana Turner, Mavini, you're my brothers. Glenn, you're my leader. Please lead. We always use that quote by Mrs. White: the greatest wonder of the world is the wonder of men who will not be bought or sold, men who in their inmost souls are true and honest, men who do not fear to call sin by its right name, men whose conscience is as true as duty as the needle to the pole. That's Mrs. White. We always talk about her. This is what we need right now. You can do it. I believe in you. And the church needs you to do it. They need you to say, you know what? We need to step back a little bit. I've always had this passage of scripture as something on when I signed off, when I first began working at the division. Acts 20, verse 24. However, I consider my life worth nothing to me. My only aim is to finish the race and complete the task the Lord Jesus has given me. I love my church, and I'm so sad that when a vulnerable girl speaks out her truth, that we cannot follow due process and do the right thing by her and follow the rules of natural justice. Our world president leader did it. Your general secretary at Fiji Mission did it. Why can't our president at Fiji Mission do it? I pray that we consider that.
Yeah.
And all you haters, don't write to me. I'm not.
No, how could anyone hate you? Well, you get for speaking truth, unfortunately. I noticed I had a great look through the Adsafe website, which is, again, a brilliant resource, but I noticed there's an apology on there for Australia and New Zealand to survivors of abuse. Maybe it's time to write an apology for Fiji. For some reason, don't know why this is not blocked, why you got to go to Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, but not Fiji. Funding's a great excuse, but when you're in a battle, we do whatever it takes. We do whatever it takes. And so, yeah, I guess
it's that awkward conversation though, Letitia. I mean, like if I was really, really honest, it's because it's so awkward to talk about this in our cultural context even, it's awkward to say, but you know what Litiana Turner said to me? I want you to hear what I'm saying. He told me, do what you have to do. He's open to that. The thing is,
look, don't tell me, show me is always my motto. Words are cheap. Words are cheap, and he might say, I don't know, I can't judge his heart, but don't tell me, show me. And we say a lot of things, and it's followed up with very little action. So if he truly believes do what you need to do, he could have moved he could have made a way for you. Who knows why not? But look, our time is up. And, you know, this is, again, I love how you've mentioned you love the church. I love the church. I've been a pastor for 25 years. I work across all denominations, and I've worked very closely in my own city with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I've just been so blessed by them. The pastor's wife was on my board for many years, so I've worked very closely. But this is a challenge to every church, not just the Adventist Church. It is time that we get trained in these issues. This is, you know, one of the pressing issues of our day, and especially in the Pacific. 4 out of 5 children are abused. You know, we've got 3rd, 4th, 5th generation abuse happening. So let's, create a safe and beautiful church where our young children can flourish, where marriages can flourish, where we're not hiding abuse and rape and infidelity. It's all in the church, pornography. So let's let it come out. Let's lance that boil. It'll be ugly, but then something beautiful will come forward. So Litiana, thank you for your time. I know this is something deep in your heart. And when I've spoken to you, your passion has come out again and again. So thank you for your voice today, and God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you so much.